What if the bravest call for help didn't just save one child's life, but exposed a scandal that could shake an entire city? Tonight, you'll witness the shocking story of a child who secretly dialed 911 on their abusive father. Stay with us, because what happens when that door opens will leave you speechless.
Please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel if you love kindness.
The night was quiet in a small suburban neighborhood, but inside one house, silence was dangerous. A young child, no older than 10, sat on the bedroom floor, clutching an old cell phone that wasn't even supposed to work anymore. Their tiny hands shook as they dialed 3 numbers, 911. On the other end, a calm voice answered. 911, what's your emergency? The child whispered so quietly that the dispatcher had to lean closer to hear. Help me. My dad, he's angry again. The dispatcher froze. She had handled thousands of calls, but there was something about this voice, this fear, that made her heart race. She spoke softly. Stay calm, sweetheart. Stay hidden. Help is coming. But what the child didn't know was that this call would uncover more than just a violent father. It would reveal secrets, lies, and a scandal so shocking that it would shake the entire neighborhood. Moments earlier, the father had been in the living room, shouting into his phone. The child couldn't hear everything, but they caught enough words to understand. If anyone finds out, we're finished. His voice was low, filled with rage. He wasn't just abusive, he was hiding something much bigger. He had enemies, he had debts, and he had secrets he would do anything to protect. The child had learned to stay silent, to stay small, to disappear when their father was angry. But tonight was different. Tonight the shouting was worse. Tonight, glass had shattered. Tonight, the father's rage wasn't just directed at the walls or the furniture, it was coming for them. That's when the child crawled under the bed, pressed the phone to their ear, and made the bravest decision of their life. The dispatcher, sensing the danger, kept the child talking in whispers. Can you tell me your name? She asked. No, the child whispered, terrified that their father might hear. He'll kill me if he finds out. The dispatcher nodded silently to herself and typed furiously, signaling the location to the nearest patrol cars. But as she did, she noticed something strange. The address she entered lit up with a red flag in the system. This house, it was already under investigation. The police had been watching the father for weeks, not just for abuse, but for suspected criminal activity. He wasn't just a violent man, he was tied up in something far darker. The dispatcher's stomach turned. This wasn't just a rescue call. This was about to become a full-blown raid. Meanwhile, inside the house, the father stomped down the hallway. His heavy boots thudded against the wooden floor. "Where are you?" he shouted. The child's heart pounded as they pressed themselves deeper into the shadows beneath the bed. They clutched the phone, praying their father wouldn't hear the faint voice on the line. The dispatcher whispered, "Stay quiet, don't move, they're almost there." The father opened the bedroom door. His eyes scanned the room, his breath ragged, his fists clenched. He muttered, "I know you're in here." The child bit down on their lip to stop a sob from escaping. Just as the father bent down to look under the bed, a knock came from the front door. The father froze. Who could it be at this hour? His face twisted in anger. He stormed down the hall, leaving the child shaking but still hidden. The dispatcher's voice whispered in the darkness, "Stay calm. Don't come out. This is the moment." The child didn't know it yet, but the knock at the door was not just the police. It was the beginning of something much bigger, because when that door opened, the truth about their father, the double life he had been living, would come crashing into the light. The knock at the door echoed through the house like thunder. The father froze in the hallway, his jaw tightening, his fists clenching. He wasn't expecting anyone, not this late. He glanced back toward the child's room, suspicion in his eyes, before storming down the hallway. The child, still under the bed, clutched the phone tightly to their chest. Their tiny heart raced as the dispatcher whispered softly in their ear, "Don't move. Don't make a sound. This is it. They're here." The father yanked the door open, and standing outside were 2 uniformed police officers. Their flashlights cut through the darkness as one of them said calmly, "Evening, sir. "We received a call from this address. Is everything okay?" The father forced a smile, though his eyes were wild with rage. "A call? From here? That must be a mistake. Everything's fine." He tried to shut the door, but the officer placed a boot against it. "We'll need to come in and check, sir." The father hesitated. His eyes darted toward the living room, toward the study in the corner. Papers, money, and something else, something he didn't want anyone to see, were scattered across his desk. He swallowed hard and said, "It's late. My kid's asleep. Come back tomorrow." But the police weren't buying it. They stepped inside. The father's face turned pale as the officer's flashlight swept across the room, landing on shattered glass, overturned furniture, and a dark stain on the wall. "Sir," one officer said firmly, "we're going to need to speak with your child." At that moment, the father snapped. His friendly mask dropped. His voice turned sharp. "You're not talking to my kid. This is my house, and you don't belong here without a warrant." But the officers stood their ground. "We had a 911 call, sir. That gives us the right to make sure everyone here is safe." The father clenched his jaw, his knuckles white, but before he could argue again, a faint sound betrayed him. From upstairs, the dispatcher's voice carried through the child's phone. "Stay calm. We're right here." The officers' heads snapped up. One of them whispered to the other, "The call is still live." They followed the sound, step by step, moving toward the child's room. The father's face twisted in panic. He lunged toward the staircase, but an officer blocked his path. "Sir, step aside." "Don't you dare go up there," the father shouted. His voice cracked with something more than anger. It was fear. Fear of what they might find. As the officers pushed past him, the child pressed themselves deeper under the bed. The dispatcher whispered again, "They're coming. Just hold on a little longer." The father tried one last desperate move. He grabbed the nearest officer's arm and snarled, "You don't know what you're doing. You're going to ruin everything." The officer shoved him back and reached for his cuffs. "Sir, you need to calm down." But as the struggle continued, something fell out of the father's jacket pocket, an envelope stuffed with cash, and inside it, photographs. Photographs of meetings with men the officers recognized, men tied to criminal investigations. The officers exchanged a glance. This wasn't just domestic abuse anymore. This was bigger, much bigger. And upstairs, the child heard the commotion and whispered into the phone, "Please, don't let him take me." The dispatcher's voice was steady. "They won't, sweetheart. Not tonight. Tonight, everything changes." The officers moved quickly up the stairs, their flashlights cutting through the dark hallway. The father, still yelling downstairs, struggled against the officer trying to cuff him. His words were frantic now, desperate. "You don't understand. If you go up there, you'll ruin everything. You'll get us all killed." His voice cracked, revealing fear he could no longer hide. The child, still under the bed, clutched the phone and whispered into the receiver, "They're here. I hear them." The dispatcher's calm voice replied, "Yes, sweetheart. Stay hidden until they tell you it's safe." One officer slowly opened the bedroom door. The beam of his flashlight swept across the room, landing on tiny shoes beside the bed. He crouched low and whispered, "It's okay. You're safe now. You can come out." For a moment, silence. Then slowly, a small hand reached out from under the bed. The officer gently pulled the child into the light. Tears streamed down the child's face as the officer whispered, "You did the right thing, calling us. You're very brave." But before relief could settle in, a loud crash echoed from downstairs. The father had broken free, slamming the officer against the wall and bolting toward the study. The other officer shouted, "Stay with the child," and raced after him. The father burst into the study and tore open a hidden drawer. Inside were stacks of cash, forged IDs, and something far more sinister, documents linking him to a crime syndicate operating across the city. He stuffed the papers into a bag, his hands trembling. "I can't let them find this. Not now." The pursuing officer stormed into the room. "Drop the bag," he shouted. The father spun around, his eyes wild, sweat dripping down his face. "You don't get it," he spat. "If they find out what I've done, it won't just be me that goes down. People will come after you too." Meanwhile, upstairs, the child listened to the shouting and clung tightly to the officer who had rescued them. "He's hiding something," the child whispered. "He always goes into that room when he thinks no one's looking." The officer nodded, knowing backup was on the way. Downstairs, the struggle intensified. The father swung wildly, shoving the officer into the desk. The bag of cash spilled across the floor, thumped, and photographs fluttered out. Photographs showing the father meeting in secret with powerful men from the community. One face stood out. It wasn't just criminals. It was someone the police recognized, a local politician. The officer's eyes widened. "What is this?" he muttered. The father snarled, "Shut up! You don't know who you're dealing with." He lunged again, but this time the officer managed to pin him down, pressing his knee into his back. Within minutes, more police arrived, sirens screaming outside, blue lights flashing through the windows. Neighbors gathered, whispering in shock as officers poured into the house. The father was dragged out in handcuffs, shouting threats and warnings. "You think you've won? You don't know the people I work for. This isn't over." The child, wrapped in a blanket, was led carefully down the stairs. Their eyes darted to their father, but instead of fear, there was something else: relief. The nightmare was finally ending. But for the police, this was just the beginning. Because inside that bag was evidence of a scandal that would rock the entire city, and the brave call of one frightened child had just blown it wide open.